Number 10. An intimate encounter. In Seminole, Florida, a woman has been charged with criminal mischief, and the reason why is almost unbelievable. She got herself entangled in an intimate encounter inside a bar's bathroom in December of 2021. The encounter resulted in the sink breaking right off the wall. According to the police, Catherine Trammell, a woman of 37 years, and her male friend were customers at the Irish 31 pub in Seminole. Employees witnessed them sneaking into the bathroom together and then promptly asked them to leave, but they didn't. They sat at the bar a little bit longer, sipped their drinks, and then visited the bathroom a second time together. As if getting busted and kicked out the first time wasn't exciting enough, they went back for seconds. But it was after the second trip to the bathroom that the employees saw the sink had been broken right off the wall. We don't think we need to elaborate on how that may have happened. We can all picture it pretty clearly in our minds. When questioned by the police, Catherine admitted she and her friend had broken the sink together, causing $500 in damage. Number 9. Arguing at Dunkin' Donuts. A teen in New York City was busted for her involvement in a shooting that happened at a Dunkin' Donuts in the Bronx. The teenager, a young woman of only 18, was identified as Santiana Rodriguez. On March 18, 2022, she shot to death a Jamaican immigrant named Stephon Stewart in broad daylight. It happened on Holland Avenue, just in front of the Dunkin' Donuts. But it all started inside when Rodriguez cut the line and Stewart called her out on it. Instead of going to the back of the line like a normal and decent person, Rodriguez told Stewart to back off and accused him of having COVID. The Jamaican immigrant wasn't about to start a brawl in the middle of a coffee shop, so he let Rodriguez cut the line and didn't make a big fuss about it. But when he left the shop, Rodriguez followed Stewart and his friend outside. She then met up with a couple of her buddies who followed the immigrants down the street and shot them to death. We don't know who exactly pulled the trigger, but we do know Rodriguez instigated the whole thing and is going down for murder. We also know that Stewart had just arrived in the US in December of 2021. He hadn't even made it a full year in America before he was shot to death over a frivolous argument at a Dunkin' Donuts. Number 8. Janine Thomas. Janine Thomas is a pretty terrible person who lives in Philadelphia. She first came into the local spotlight in 2015 for a string of thefts and general bad behavior at Philadelphia eateries. She didn't get national fame, but she was well known throughout the city for being the worst customer ever. She was arrested for attempting to dine and dash at a restaurant called Veg. She was also busted stealing somebody's belongings at Chris's Jazz Cafe. Within a very short span of time, Janine Thomas was arrested 8 times. Each time she was arrested, she would just go back and do something terrible at a different establishment. It wasn't until February of 2016 that Janine finally got in major trouble by the police. She was given 5 years of probation and ordered to participate in rehab. She even called the local Philadelphia papers to give her side of the story and apologize for being such a bad person and an unlikable customer. It seemed she was turning her life around. But then in July of that same year, she was arrested at University City in the middle of the day for being drunk and disorderly. The day after, she was arrested at the restaurant Pattaya Thai for stealing a pair of purses and attempting to make a getaway through the basement. The police found her drunk and trying to ditch the evidence in the septic tank. She was arrested and taken to Riverside Women's Jail in northeast Philadelphia and was looking at some serious jail time. Number 7. A ketchup arrest. On October 27, 2018, a woman assaulted the manager of a McDonald's restaurant because she didn't get enough ketchup. This is what the Santa Ana police in California said after her arrest. She was taken into custody in November, over a month later, after receiving numerous tips from the public confirming her identity. Her name is Myra Berenice Gallo, and she was just 24 years old when she became one of the first Karens in history, before Karen was even a term. She was caught on surveillance footage entering the restaurant through the back door marked "Employees Only." It was about 11 o'clock at night, and she was furious for being stiffed on the ketchup. Myra, once in the employee-only area, launched herself at the manager. The manager was pinned between the crazy woman and the drive-through window. She had nowhere to go and nowhere to run, and could only attempt to protect herself as the crazed Myra viciously assaulted her and even tried to strangle her. And it all started over a lack of ketchup. She didn't get enough of the condiment in her bag. She started a fight about it at the front of the store, and she pursued it all the way into the back. After the vicious assault, she fled with a man and was gone. But thanks to the footage, the police were flooded with tips and people giving up Myra's name. One of the viewers even called the cops and gave them her home address. Number 6. A freakout at the hair salon. Sharon Spellman was a hairstylist in LA back in 2020. She was 25 years old, working at Simply Insane Hair Salon. Her employment there had been relatively normal until one day when a truly insane person walked in through the doors. The customer, referred to only as Robin by Spellman, was looking to get a root touch-up service. Spellman set her up with her assistant, a person named Alex, and that was when the freakout started. Robin refused to be helped by the assistant. She insisted that Spellman do her hair herself and wouldn't take no for an answer. She even started getting belligerent about it. There was some extremely intense arguing, in which it came out Robin didn't want the other woman to touch her hair because of the color of her skin. She was being racist in front of everyone, saying she only wanted to get her hair done by a white woman. She had even been okay with being helped by Alex, the assistant, until she saw that she was Latina. Naturally, she was asked to leave. In response, Robin flipped out. She lunged at the stylist, tried to hit her, and then started crying. She was clearly having a mental breakdown. Either way, she was kicked out of the salon and is never allowed back. Number 5. The Fake Agent. A man named David Stover was arrested for impersonating a law enforcement officer in April of 2022. David walked into a Wendy's restaurant in Bridal, Florida, and told the employees behind the counter he was law enforcement. He did this because he wanted to get a discount on his fast food. But when the employees at the restaurant refused to give him the discount, he didn't just say okay and leave it alone. He pushed the issue and got into a screaming match with the staff, who then called the real police. According to the employees of the Wendy's, David freaked out and threatened to report the staff for not cooperating. But believe it or not, the business with the discount goes back over 2 years. He had a friend who worked there and would give him a discount. When that friend left their job, that was when David came up with the whole law enforcement bit. But instead of getting a discount on his cheap burger, he was arrested and charged. Number 4. Rampage at the Arcade. Horror struck at the popular CK Video Arcade back in December of 2021. The arcade, located in New Orleans, was a popular place for people to hang out and play retro arcade machines. But everything went wrong on a tournament night when a customer became erratic, took a price tag gun and started to plaster the video game machines with stickers. The owner of the joint, Judah Lee, refunded the man's money and asked him to leave. He was acting obnoxious and vandalizing the machines in front of everybody. The customer had no intention of leaving, though. When asked to vacate the premises, he pulled out a knife and threatened the owner, plunging the place into a silent tension. Thankfully, the customer put the knife away and ran out the door. But they weren't finished. The customer came back 20 minutes later and attached a bicycle lock to the inside of the doors, locking everyone inside. Luckily, the owner was able to get his 15 customers out through a different exit to safety. All he could do next was watch through the video cameras inside the arcade as the insane customer smashed out every single one of his machines with an axe. He had spent 6 years of his life building the arcade into a successful business, and it was smashed apart in one night. But what's really crazy is that nobody even came to help. The owner had to go himself to the police station after 911 didn't work. At the station, he was told there were no available units, and so the police didn't even come while the man's business was torn apart by a maniac with an axe. In the end, over $50,000 in damage was done, and his business was ruined. Number 3. Unprovoked violence. At a gas station in Iowa, a customer used her fists, teeth, and feet to violently attack the clerk. According to the cops in Urbandale where this happened, the act of violence was completely unprovoked. It was February of 2022 when the woman, identified as Amber Ravel, walked through the front doors and lay down on the floor. When the gas station clerk asked if she was okay, genuinely worried she was in trouble, that was when everything went wrong. She sprang to her feet, ran at the attendant, and then bit and kicked him. He didn't receive any serious injuries, but it was still pretty scary. The poor guy was just trying to do his job alone in a gas station, and there was a maniac kicking and biting him. When the cops showed up, the woman attacked them as well. She tore down racks in the store, flung herself around like she was possessed, and was dragged away in handcuffs. Officers say she was charged with public intoxication, assault on a police officer, and criminal mischief. What it looks like is that she got wasted, tried to take a nap on the floor of the gas station, and then took out whatever frustration she had in her own life on the lonely clerk. Number 2. The unruly passenger. When a crazy passenger tried to force his way into the cockpit of an American Airlines flight in 2016, he found himself getting smashed over the head with a coffee pot. It was one of the most bizarre customer freakouts on an airplane pre-COVID. According to the official release from the FBI, the man's name was Juan Ramberto Rivas. He was 50 years old on a flight from LA to Washington. In the middle of the flight, he began to display erratic behavior. He threatened the flight attendants, he was acting like a maniac, and then he got up from his seat and brandished a plastic knife like a shank. Then Juan ditched his knife and grabbed a champagne bottle by the neck and tried to smash it on the counter to make an even better shank. He ran at the exit door and tried to open it, but it didn't work, so he went after the cockpit. It was about this time that one of the flight attendants grabbed a coffee pot and smashed it over Juan's head. An off-duty cop who happened to be on the airplane, assisted by several other passengers, then sprang on Juan and held him down on the floor. With help from the crew, they used zip ties to restrain his hands and feet. They kept him prisoner until they landed safely at the Kansas City International Airport, where Juan was taken into custody by the FBI. Number 1. Bridal salon mayhem. After not getting her deposit back at a bridal salon, an insane woman went on a rampage and caused over $11,000 in damage. This went down in January of 2022 at a bridal salon in China. The disgruntled customer, who hasn't been named, was filmed by horrified spectators as she went through rack after rack of wedding gowns and sliced them up with a pair of scissors. She destroyed 32 wedding dresses, all because the store refused to give back her deposit of $550. According to the workers, the deposit was for a wedding package that the customer abruptly cancelled, worth $1,250. We can only assume the angry customer had something go wrong with her own planned wedding. And then, when she didn't get her money back, something snapped in her brain. She went and got herself a pair of scissors, then went rampaging through the store with her COVID mask on, slicing dress after dress until the police finally showed up. Now she's looking at somewhere around $74,000 in fine, plus the damage.
Number 10. Deirdre Orozco. 50-year-old Deirdre Orozco was driving down the I-80 interstate in California in 2014 when she got into a bizarre altercation with another driver. It ended with Orozco ramming her vehicle into a woman's car in an attempt to run her off the road. Orozco later claimed that she was trying to carry out a citizen's arrest on the other driver, whom she claimed she saw texting while behind the wheel, putting other motorists in danger. But that's not exactly how things went down, according to Vanessa Gladio, the woman who was driving the car that was struck. She also had a passenger in her car who backed up her story. After getting hit, the pair dialed 911 and were guided to safety. Police didn't exactly buy Orozco's story. They arrested her for reckless driving, resisting arrest, and assault with a deadly weapon. Just days earlier, Orozco had been charged in relation to another bizarre traffic incident in which she was accused of throwing rocks through another driver's window and making threats before fleeing the scene. According to court documents, she pleaded no contest to making threats to commit a crime, resulting in death and assault with a deadly weapon. Orozco was sentenced to a little over 2.5 years in county jail, followed by 5 years of probation. Number 9. Erica Cole. When a 31-year-old Alabama woman named Erica Cole found herself caught up in an episode of road rage in 2019, she pulled out her gun and aimed at the party she was angry at. But she missed the mark and accidentally shot her husband, Nicholas Cole, in the head. Deputies from the Cullman County Sheriff's Office responded to the scene and arrested Erica for her nearly fatal outburst. In the meantime, Nicholas was taken to the hospital, where he was soon reported to be in a stable condition. The man that Erica meant to shoot walked away with minor injuries. A nearby resident told local station WVTM 13 that they heard a loud blast and thought it was fireworks at first. They realized what was going on when they looked outside and saw Nicholas on the ground. More details of the altercation came to light in the days following the chaotic ordeal. Apparently, the couple got into an argument with another driver in Dodge City. According to the police report, Erica tried to separate her husband and another man, who were exchanging heated words. Even though the police believed that she was trying to break the two up, they concluded that she most likely fired the gun on purpose. Number 8. Destiny Edwards. In a regrettable moment of anger, a motorist shot another driver in a Commerce City, Colorado alleyway in early March. The ordeal started with road rage and ended with a collision between the two vehicles. Both drivers got out of their cars, at which point one shot the other and fled the scene. The victim thankfully survived and was taken to the hospital, where they were treated for a gunshot wound. Police identified 24-year-old Destiny Edwards as their prime suspect and put out a wanted bulletin on social media featuring the woman's photo. Edwards was apprehended a week after the shooting. She is currently being held on a $75,000 bond. Number 7. Bikers versus Honda driver. Police in Boston, Massachusetts recently responded to a call about a fight going on outside of McDonald's in the city's Dorchester neighborhood and found a severely damaged Honda sedan at the bottom of an embankment. 2 people involved in the fight suffered minor injuries, but no arrests have been made in the case. Shocking video footage shows the red Honda quickly turning into the fast food restaurant's parking lot and right into a group of motorbikes and their owners. The car struck one person on a bike and proceeded to ram through a metal fence. Things quickly erupted into violence when one of the angry bikers smashed something through the vehicle driver's side window. Alleged witnesses told an investigative team from local station WCVB that the driver of the Honda was harassing the bikers before the fight made its way over to McDonald's. Onlooker Michael Nader, who passed by when the incident occurred and snapped some photos, described seeing someone getting beaten with helmets. He watched as several participants fled the scene, running between cars as they crossed the street. At the time the news broke, police had identified several, but not all of the people who were involved. They believe that the chaotic disagreement stemmed from a road rage incident between the bikers and the driver behind the wheel of the Honda. Number 6. Raymond Dick. In one of the latest cases of only in Florida, the city of Jacksonville has found itself footing the bill for damages to a resident's home after an enraged driver crashed into the abode during a police pursuit. Officers were chasing the motorist, 28-year-old Raymond Dick, after he allegedly shot at them. Luckily, nobody was hit by the gunfire. The 7-minute chase ended when the suspect veered into the front yard of local resident Robert McLean, who told local station News 4 Jacksonville that he was in his bedroom when he suddenly heard a loud thud. McLean said that he looked out his window and saw officers surrounding a crashed Ford Excursion with their guns drawn. The SUV had rammed through the homeowner's front gate and brick post, causing an estimated $40,000 to $50,000 worth of damage. Dick was allegedly combative towards the police as they tried to arrest him, and he is also accused of grabbing and punching one of their canines. McLean, who had an unexpected front row seat to the show, said that it took 4 officers to subdue Dick. He was taken to a hospital for some injuries and faces a charge of attempted murder of a police officer. Previous court records suggest that the suspect has mental health and anger issues, as well as brain damage. Dick was previously charged with aggravated assault on his disabled father with a fireplace poker. McLean said that he's glad that nobody was seriously harmed in the ordeal, but that he hopes his yard can be restored to its former beauty. Number 5. Edward James Heiston. Police in Springville, Utah recently received a call from the distraught driver of a Toyota Tundra who claimed that he was the victim of a road rage-induced crash. The motorist pulled his car to the side of the road, expecting the other driver to do the same so that they could sort out the details of the accident. When he got out of his vehicle, the man behind the wheel of the car hit him and fled the scene. Officers quickly tracked the suspect down and identified him as Edward James Heiston. He told them he was trying to swerve around the Toyota when the driver struck his windshield, causing it to break. But the police didn't buy the story at face value. They reportedly smelled alcohol in Heiston's breath and subjected him to a sobriety test and a breathalyzer. His blood alcohol level tested out at 0.210%, which is more than 4 times the legal limit in Utah. Court documents revealed that Heiston already had 2 DUIs under his belt before his recent arrest. In fact, he wasn't even supposed to be driving. His privileges were revoked due to his alcohol-related offenses, and he was supposed to have an interlocking device in any vehicle he drove. In addition to being drunk behind the wheel, he was pulled over in his mom's car, which did not have the interlocking device. Heiston is facing charges for a DUI with previous convictions, driving without the interlocking device, being a restricted driver with alcohol in his system, aggravated assault with force or violence, reckless driving, and driving with a revoked license. It's probably safe to say that his driving privileges won't be restored anytime soon. Number 4. Andre Kenny Mark Green. 29-year-old Andre Kenny Mark Green recently found himself on the wrong side of the law twice in 1 week when his road rage repeatedly got the better of him. In mid-March, he allegedly fired at least 2 bullets at another driver on Interstate 276 in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, during the afternoon. According to a state trooper's report, someone in a gray sedan shot at a driver in a Ford F-150 pickup truck. Just 6 days later, a suspect in a vehicle similar to the first incident shot at another motorist at least twice in the same area. 2 bullets were found inside the victim's car, and some shell casings were also recovered from the crime scene. Thankfully, nobody was injured in either shooting. The suspect's gray Kia Forte was soon connected with the disturbing acts of violence. Police tracked Green down at his job and charged him with aggravated assault, simple assault, harassment, reckless endangerment, and gun-related violations. His bail was set at $85,000. Number 3. Joseph Witkowitz. In mid-2020, 25-year-old Joseph Witkowitz pulled his vehicle over to the side of the road in Ellesmere, Kentucky, after noticing that the car behind him was following a little too close for comfort. At the time, he had his girlfriend and child in the vehicle with him. The other motorist, 35-year-old Nicole Doherty, also pulled over. As she approached Witkowitz's car, an argument erupted between the two. To this day, the details of the exchange remain murky, but one thing was clear in the tragic aftermath of the encounter. Witkowitz had pulled a gun and fatally shot Doherty. Witnesses later recalled hearing 3 shots and seeing the man standing over his victim's lifeless body, according to Cincinnati.com. As Daughtry moved to lay in her back, Witkowitz walked toward her and shot her 4 more times, according to one onlooker, who refrained from being identified due to fear of retaliation. Another bystander pointed out that the suspect cooperated with law enforcement. Police nevertheless charged him with murder for his alleged role in Doherty's death after finding the woman's bullet-riddled body on the sidewalk. Witkowitz said that he fired at the woman in self-defense. His attorney, Tricia Brunk, pointed out that the family didn't know Doherty and were afraid of her, especially since she was supposedly driving erratically and swerving into oncoming traffic before the fatal encounter occurred. Brunk further explained that Witkowitz had pulled over to let the impatient driver pass him. In other words, he wasn't trying to provoke a confrontation with Doherty. The prosecutor, Kenton County Commonwealth Attorney Rob Sanders, argued that the suspect took things too far when he continued to shoot Doherty after she had fallen onto the ground. He blamed the man's actions on an uncontrolled case of road rage and described the victim's death as needless in his closing argument. After deliberating for 4 hours, the jury found Witkowitz guilty of the lesser charge of second-degree manslaughter and imposed a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Number 2. Adrian Hill. A 44-year-old South Lake, Texas resident named Adrian Hill allegedly had difficulty keeping his anger in check after an SUV struck his family's vehicle at a traffic light and sped off. Hill and his wife called the police, who reported to the scene and learned that the victim had attempted to follow the hit-and-run driver, but lost track of the vehicle. A little while later, Hill located the SUV that he thought had crashed into his car and pulled into the driveway where it was parked. He reportedly got out of his vehicle and walked towards the SUV with a gun in his hand as the occupants exited the vehicle. The man in the driveway pulled out a pocket knife, and the two men got into a physical fight. They both sustained non-life-threatening injuries in the struggle. Hill is accused of shooting the gun towards the home and the SUV. Thankfully, nobody was struck by the bullet, which police recovered at the scene. Officers concluded that the residents were not involved in the hit-and-run like Hill mistakenly thought. In fact, they were nowhere near the scene of the accident when it occurred. Hill was arrested for deadly conduct. The investigation into the hit-and-run is ongoing, and the driver of the SUV that hit the family's car remains unidentified and at large. Number 1. Juan Franco. During a recent Sunday afternoon drive with his 4-year-old child in the back seat, a 40-year-old Springfield, Massachusetts man named Juan Franco allegedly shot at a car with 2 people inside. Police were alerted to an incident that afternoon and reported to the scene, where they found numerous shell casings. They pulled Franco over and detained him after removing the child and a handgun from the car. The suspect faces a slew of charges, including carrying a gun without a license, carrying a loaded gun without a license, 2 counts of attempted assault and battery with a firearm, shooting a gun within 500 feet of a building, malicious damage to a motor vehicle, reckless child endangerment, and leaving the scene of a property damage crash. Details about the disagreement that led to the violence have yet to be released.
10. Killer Hug. Christina Grimmie was killed in 2016 by a man named Kevin Loibel. Christina was an American singer and star on YouTube. She started with covers in 2009, released her first EP in 2011, and became a contestant on season 6 of The Voice. She was a rising star. She even got herself an acting role and appeared in her very first movie. But tragically, she was shot to death at an autograph signing at the Plaza Live in Orlando, California. Kevin Loibel showed up at her autograph signing equipped with 2 handguns and 2 extra magazines, and also a large hunting knife. Because there were no metal detectors at the venue, he was able to walk straight up to the performer, strapped like Rambo, and shoot her once in the head and twice in the chest. To make the whole thing even more disturbing, Kevin did this as Christina opened her arms to give him a hug. She thought he was an ordinary fan and was trying to show her appreciation. That was when he pulled out his weapon and committed murder. As it turned out, Kevin was extremely obsessed with the singer. His colleagues described him as socially awkward and detached, and said his weird obsession with Christina Grimmie was far from healthy. He wasn't normal. He frequently said things that struck his co-workers as weird and sad, but he never gave any indication that he was plotting a murder. It just seemed to have exploded inside him, all because of his obsession with a famous person he didn't even know. 9. Attack on Seth Rollins. During a live broadcast of WWE Raw from the Barclays Center back in November of 2021, a fan attacked superstar Seth Rollins. And all because he'd been catfished and scammed by an online social media account pretending to be the wrestler. In other words, the attacker believed Seth Rollins had trolled him on the internet, so he showed up to his match to get some action for himself. The fan has been identified as Eliza Spencer by the New York Police Department. He's a 24-year-old guy from Brooklyn with no criminal record before the incident with Seth Rollins. As for what actually happened at the show, it was a major ambush. Spencer attacked Rollins as he walked up the ramp to go into the backstage area after his match with Finn Balor. He didn't do much damage, and Rollins was right back on his feet after the attack, yelling, "Is that all you've got?" Before Spencer could do anything else, security members were pulling him away, flailing. But the weirdest part is really the whole thing with the fake social media account. Someone actually set up a fake Seth Rollins account as far back as 2019 to scam people out of hundreds of dollars. Apparently, the faker managed to get Spencer's girlfriend in trouble with the law because of some fake check. Spencer became so angry that he finally broke down and tried to attack the WWE superstar. 8. The execution of Andre Escobar. Andre Escobar was a famous Colombian soccer player who made a very dangerous mistake. At the 1994 World Cup, after Colombia had finished at the top of their group and beaten Argentina, he accidentally scored a goal for the opposing team. It was a total bungle during the match between Colombia and the United States. American midfielder John Harkes kicked the ball towards the goal. Andre deflected the ball and it bounced all the way back into his own net. It cost him the game, with the US taking the lead and winning 2-1. Most people would be pretty understanding about what happened. It's not like he deflected the ball on purpose to lose the 1994 FIFA World Cup. Sure, his fans and teammates were angry, but that's just part of the deal that comes with being a famous sports player. What Andre Escobar couldn't have possibly imagined was that he would be executed for losing the game and angering a local drug cartel. It was as Andre was leaving a nightclub in Medellin when 3 men appeared in the parking lot. He was shot 6 times, and each time a gun went off, the killer shouted, "Goal! Goal!" Under investigation, it came to be known that it was Santiago Gallon who ordered the hit, and all because he'd lost a sizable chunk of money on the game. He was given 43 years in prison for it. 7. Attacked on stage. Allie Brooke, one of the members of Fifth Harmony, was attacked at the airport in Monterrey, Mexico. A fan trying to touch her nearly ripped the shirt right off Allie's body. Even though she was surrounded by security guards, a psycho saw her, wanted to get close to her, and clawed at her clothes like some kind of insane raccoon. And that's just the kind of terrifying thing that can happen when you become famous. But Allie's nightmare in Mexico was only just beginning. When she and the other performers got on stage on September 29, 2016 to perform, yet another fan tried to attack her. This time, it was a bit more violent. The fan climbed onto the stage and sprinted at Allie as if she wanted to give her a hug, but it turned into more of a creepy, drooling bear hug. The crazed fan locked his arms around Allie and refused to let go, clinging to her hair and knocking her to the ground. She was eventually rescued by her security team, and she kept on singing. But after being attacked twice, it must have put a serious damper on her trip to Mexico. 6. Marilyn Manson punched in the face. When Marilyn Manson visited a Denny's restaurant in the Canadian town of Lethbridge on a Sunday morning in 2015, he was given a local grand slam by someone who disliked him a lot. Canadian police confirmed that they were called to a disturbance at the Denny's early in the morning, and that the victim, Brian Warner, known to the public as Marilyn Manson, had sustained minor injuries. As Manson was sitting down eating a very late dinner, a couple of young women asked him for a photograph. He said yes, and that was when a man came out of nowhere and sucker punched him in the face. No reason, no motive. He just hated seeing the famous Manson being ogled by fans in a Denny's, and thought it would be good to rearrange his face. 5. Duffy's kidnapping. In February of 2020, singer-songwriter Duffy shared details of what has to be one of the most horrific experiences that's ever happened because of fame. The 35-year-old revealed that she had been abducted, then kept as a prisoner for over 4 weeks before she escaped. She had literally been kidnapped, drugged, and stolen to a foreign country. According to Duffy herself, it happened on her birthday. She was drugged at a restaurant, and then the next 4 weeks were like a horrible fever dream. She was in and out of consciousness. She woke up in hotel rooms only to be tortured. Eventually, she was brought back to her home in the UK and dumped by her kidnapper. He just dropped her off like nothing had happened. He then told her not to go to the police, not to name names, and to keep her mouth shut or he'd murder her. If you're not sure who Duffy is, she was really famous in the UK back in 2008. She had the top-selling album in the United Kingdom and then won 3 British awards and a Grammy. But after she released her second album in 2010, she vanished up until 2020. And it was all because of this terrifying incident, one that still has her afraid to be in the spotlight and suffering from PTSD. 4. Beating up Shia LaBeouf. Just like Marilyn Manson, Shia LaBeouf was also given a bit of a beatdown in a Canadian city, and all for being famous. This one was way back in 2011, at the peak of LaBeouf's fame. This was after Indiana Jones and Transformers, when he was really at the top of his game and before he started spiraling out of control. He was outside the Cinema Public House in Vancouver in the middle of the night when a group of drunk guys saw the famous LaBeouf. Apparently, they weren't fans of his. One of them took off his shirt and started beating him with his big, balled-up fists. At the time, LaBeouf was only 25 years old. He was in the province shooting a new movie with Anna Kendrick. And according to what witnesses said about the bar fight, it started inside and then dragged outside. Customers at the club said LaBeouf was involved in no less than 3 fights on that single Friday night. He just kept getting in confrontations. He was extremely wasted, and he took several punches straight to his face. The fight on the sidewalk happened simply because LaBeouf had argued with the guy inside and then been caught in the dark waiting for a cab. When you're young and famous and trying to party with the normies, this kind of thing's bound to happen. 3. Teresa Saldana. In the early 1980s, Teresa Saldana was a rising star. She played in movies like Defiance and alongside actors like Robert De Niro in Raging Bull. But during her rise to fame, something unexpected happened. She became the fixation of a mentally disturbed man who believed he was the angel of death. And in 1982, his obsession with Teresa turned violent. His name was Arthur Richard Jackson, a deranged fan originally from Scotland. He waited for Teresa to arrive at her home in West Hollywood. When she got there, he walked up and asked if she could confirm her name. She did, and he stabbed her with a hunting knife. He stabbed her so brutally that the knife actually bent from hitting her bones. Thankfully, a delivery man named Jeff Fenn saw what was happening and ran to rescue her. He wrestled the knife away from the deranged Arthur Jackson and called for an ambulance. By the time paramedics got Teresa to the hospital, almost all the blood had left her body and her heart had stopped working. Only after emergency heart and lung surgery and 26 fresh pints of blood was she brought back to life. Teresa survived the attack, but her life was never the same. She strayed from acting and became an advocate for crime victims, raising awareness about stalking. It was thanks to her efforts, as well as the horrible attack on Rebecca Schaffer in 1989, that resulted in California passing the first anti-stalking law. 2. The Glasgow Creep. Joshua Murray has been called the Glasgow Creep. The 22-year-old man from Scotland bombarded his favorite Instagram influencer, who happened to be his ex-girlfriend, with spam calls and emails. His ex is Cara Jarvis, who's not that famous, but still has tens of thousands of followers on social media. For an ordinary guy in his 20s, it seems the idea of losing his famous model girlfriend was just too much for Joshua to take. After repeatedly sending emails and threats, hundreds of phone calls, he showed up at her house in April of 2021. Joshua went full stalker, and Kara had to call the police on him. They called his actions disgraceful and terrifying. They gave him 100 hours of unpaid community work, and he got a no-contact order for 2 years. If he goes anywhere near his ex, he'll be sent straight to jail. 1. Sucker punching Rick Moranis. Sometimes being famous means a stranger's gonna punch you in the face. It's exactly what happened to Rick Moranis in 2020. If you don't know the name, you'll undoubtedly know Rick's face. He was in Ghostbusters and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He was also punched by a homeless man with a history of mental illness while walking down Central Park West in New York. The man just punched Rick in the face and then kept going, seemingly for no reason at all. But what's really crazy is that it actually didn't have anything to do with Rick Moranis being famous. It was a total coincidence. The man who punched him is Marky Ventura, and he has a dangerous history of sucker punching strangers in the face. He was hit with at least 5 assault charges within just 6 months of one another in the same year, each of them unprovoked. Sometimes he robs them, sometimes he just punches them and runs. Rick Moranis just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be a famous movie star with dangerous stalkers, or a famous sports star with millions of people who hate you? Let us know what's worse in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.